Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome. You are new. This is going to be just a quick observation. I was looking at headlines on CNN, and what was the actual headline? The headline is "The Great Dying." This is September 14th. So, if you want to look it up yourself, the Great Dying once wiped out 90% of life on Earth. A new theory may explain why. I'll repeat that. The Great Dying, which is the term given to this one of our mass extinction events. We've had like five. Currently we're in the sixth. One of them was called the Great Dying because 90% of all life on Earth was wiped out. It was 252 million years ago. That's a long time. Okay. Hard to really know what was going on back then, but obviously it was a big event. And so big events leave big footprints on the Earth. So not surprisingly, they've been able to study it. And there's a new theory coming out that actually has the ring of truth to me. I've heard various theories proposed about why the Earth suffered a great dying 252 million years ago. What's wrong with my camera? It always does that. I got a crappy camera. I'm going to get a new one. Why we had a great die-off, a great extinction event 252 million years ago. That's a lot of years. And various proposals is like, yeah, that might do it. Okay, fine, fair enough. But there's this new headline, there's a new theory, and it kind of has the ring of truth. Okay, so being a biologist, this is my wheelhouse, right? Extinctions. Being a biologist, I know something about life. And I never was really very satisfied with the explanation, but this one has the ring of truth. So I'm going to put my glasses back on because right now everything looks blurry. Here's the summary. What we're showing is that it was a climate-based extinction crisis, which makes sense, right? Well, what else was going to happen? Oh, it could have been an asteroid. And that is what wiped out the dinosaurs. But that's not what happened 252 million years ago. That has been proposed. But the problem with that as a proposal is you need to find a crater or some other kind of evidence on the surface of the Earth that a big thing happened. We can do that with the dinosaurs. There is a crater. It's called the Chicxulub crater. And the rock that came down, and they can even estimate the size and everything, is called the Chicxulub meteor. And it is found in Mexico, off of the east coast of Mexico. There's evidence of a big crater. You can't see it when you're flying over, but geologists can find the remnants of this really huge crater. And lots of problems with landing a big rock where that one hit 65 million years ago. I'll just mention a couple of them quickly. For one thing, there was water, and that lofts a lot of water into the atmosphere. And there was a lot of oil. There still is, of course. Mexico pulls a lot of oil out of the Gulf of Mexico. So does the U.S. So we know there were fossil fuels there. And an impactor like that won't just splash everything out like dropping a potato into a soup, okay? An impactor like that is so violent that it vaporizes everything. And so it would have vaporized all those fossil fuels as well. There was a lot of vaporized soil that went into the atmosphere, probably created global warming. But there was also, of course, a lot of carbon dioxide, which may have led to global heating. And there's some combination of things that this meteor, given where it hit, would have caused large scale and persistent harm to the life of the planet. And of course, the dinosaurs went extinct. So these guys are saying, regards to the Great Dying 252 million years ago, what we're showing is that it was a climate-based extinction crisis. It wasn't just the warming, it's how the climate responded. If the conditions were bad but constant, life could have evolved to cope. But the fact is, it kept lurching from one extreme to the other over the decades. Somewhere else in this article, They say, actually, it's right down below here. They say that the event that led to the Great Dying was thought to be about 100,000 years long. 100,000 years is a long time. But I want to make a distinction here. How to approach this? Okay, let's again. I've talked about extinction on this channel before, but for anyone who hasn't heard that or doesn't think about that much, extinction means that not only do many organisms die, that's like individuals. I'm an individual, you're an individual. Not only do many individuals die, which is a type of thing that can happen, but many species die. Whole assemblages of species even die. The dinosauria, which is a made-up category, was an assembly of species. It was many species in an assemblage we call the dinosauria, and they all went extinct, right? So that happens. Not only did every individual of certain species had to die, but many species also died off. So that makes it not only an extinction, but a group of extinctions, and we call it an extinction event, right? And we've had 5 of them, and we are currently in the 6th. So extinction events are very particular, and you can have die-offs. In fact, this has happened to humans. You can have a die-off of a population, but if it doesn't go extinct, you might not even notice. The fossil record, I mean, fossils are kind of hard to find anyway, and the conditions to fossilize something are somewhat rare. So you're kind of lucky if you find a fossil of an organism, a fossil of a particular fish or a particular dinosaur. And so, and just based on one fossil here and 2 over there and another one over here, you can't really tell if that population was robust, lots of individuals, or just a few, right? You would think if it was just a few, you wouldn't see any fossils at all, but they could be just a few. And you might not see any fossils, but they're not extinct. They're just rare, but they're not extinct. In fact, the non-avian dinosaurs, the part of the dinosauria that did not become birds, they all went extinct, but birds did not. Yes, birds are part of the dinosauria. They are related to dinosaurs. They walk on their back legs, and they're somewhat related to the now famous velociraptors, right? They're the same body form, the same probably the same behaviors, running after your prey on 2 legs. The birds were part of the dinosauria, part of that assemblage, and they did not go extinct. But presumably after that event, after the Chicxulub meteor basically ended the dinosaurs, they may have been really rare, and maybe there aren't many fossil records of the non-avian dinosaurs, the birds. These are the same way of saying the same thing. No, they're not. The avian dinosaurs. That's what I meant to say. The avian dinosaurs are now called birds. That's what I meant to say. The non-avian dinosaurs, I'm getting this right now. The non-avian dinosaurs all went extinct. The aves, which is the group, aves did not. They went forward. When you're eating a chicken, you know what dinosaur tastes like. So you can have a really precipitous die-off of a species, but if it's not poof, gone, then it did not go extinct. So in these big die-offs, we know it was a die-off because so many things went extinct. That means we had fossil records for all these things, and then after a certain period of time in the geologic record, we just don't see them anymore. And it doesn't mean they didn't, continue to occur somehow, but they were so rare and the fossilization is so hard that they were just gone for all practical purposes. They're plentiful in the record up to here, and then we just don't see them anymore. And we don't see them today. And we don't see them in the record anywhere up to that point. They were okay, and then they were not, and then they were gone. So that's what these big die-offs are about. So sometime during a period of 100,000 years, okay, that's the number you have to keep in mind. Somehow, during a period of 100,000 years of the great dying is thought to have occurred for a 100,000 years. How do they know this? Well, they can date the sediments and they can see which sediments contain species that are going extinct. All right. Maybe there's species that go extinct early on in 100,000 years, and then a little later, there's another set of species that go extinct. And then after that, there's another set of species that goes extinct. And it's an extinction event. It's a whole layer of strata in the geologic record that has all these extinction events, different species that vanishing over 100,000 years. And then after that, everything seems to be fine. We whatever survived that layer in the geologic strata, whatever emerged on the other side of that black hole, just continues on and maybe goes extinct later. As we know, the dinosaurs certainly did. But 252 million years ago, there was this extinction event. They're saying here, and I'm going to get to the point. This is all just setting the scene. Okay, it lasted 100,000 years. And here's their statement about what happened over the course of 100,000 years. If the conditions were bad but constant, life could have evolved to cope. 100,000 years is a long time. If you're having a warming period on the planet for whatever reason, right? Increased volcanic activity, movements of the continents block certain water movements or whatever in the oceans, and you get a warming event or even a cooling event. We could use either one in this case, but it takes 100,000 years. Organisms can actually evolve. That 100,000 years is a long time. Humans, Homo sapiens, have only been on the planet for 300,000 years, maybe even as little as 200, depending on who you talk to. So 100,000 years is a long time. All right. So if you're having a gradual heating in the planet, or even a gradual cooling of the planet, or a gradual drying of the planet, or even a gradual flooding of the planet, like from ice melt, then 100,000 years, organisms can change. They can grow their fur thicker. They can grow their fur thinner. They can migrate. They can abandon a certain continent and show up on another continent where conditions are more favorable. They've got lots of time. And so it doesn't have to be an extinction event. If things are gradual over 100,000 years, there's no obvious reason why anything would have to go extinct. You might tend to see it in plants. Plants they have roots, right? They don't have legs, they don't have wings. They don't swim. So if a plant finds itself growing on a island or on a continent or something that suddenly changes in some terrible way that the plant can't survive, then you'll get a plant extinction. But plants spread themselves so readily with seeds and things like that they're generally not found on a single place. They're found all over the place. So plants going extinct over 100,000 years, even though they can't move and get out of the way, they can just spread themselves willy-nilly, and they'll eventually find some habitat where they can eke out an existence, what we call a refugia, a refuge. So plants tend to survive these things in a different way. But 100,000 years is a long time for an event to take place. Something like the Chicxulub event that wiped out the dinosaurs, that was not 100,000 years. That all the dinosaurs may have died in the matter of a year or two. All the non-avian, non-bird dinosaurs may have gone extinct in 2 or 3 years. It was just so devastating. They couldn't evolve. If the Chicxulub meteorite had triggered a climate migration, climate change that took 100,000 years, we would probably still have dinosaurs today. In fact, we probably wouldn't even be here. The dinosaurs would still be dominant. They'd be different, of course. They will have changed over the time. It's been a long time. It's been 65 million years. But the mammals may never have come out of their burrows and dominated the land. So we could all be sitting here talking lizards, right? But as it happened, the mass extinction of the dinosaurs took place over just a few years, and they couldn't adapt, and there was nowhere for them to go, and it was a global catastrophe. And so what? They're going to get in rockets and go to Mars? No, it was a global catastrophe. They couldn't go anywhere, and they just went extinct. That's it. It was too fast. It was too much. It was too extreme. It was too global. There was no place where they could hide. There was no place they could go to escape it. And they're just dinosaurs. All they can do is walk anyway. And they just got caught. They got caught, and they all went extinct except for the birds. And the birds are See what happens? The birds are smaller. Some of them could fly. They were eating smaller amounts of food. And so they kind of squeaked out on existence. And what do we say about nuclear war? Oh, if we ever have a nuclear war, humans will all be dead, but there'll still be rats and cockroaches. Why do we say rats and cockroaches? Because they're little and they get by with a little amount of food and they can hide in tiny places. And, you know, they have this massive reproductive rate. And so we imagine that the rats and the cockroaches will survive World War III. What we won't, because we're big and we need habitat and we need lots of food and lots of water and, all this kind of stuff. So it's the little things that make it. And the birds were little things and they made it. And now we can eat dinosaurs because of chickens. So when your changes take place over a long period of time, I'm getting to the point because I got other things to do. When your changes take place, even if they're catastrophic or really huge, if they do take place over a long period of time, plants and animals and other forms of life can just evolve. They can either move someplace else, establish themselves someplace else, or just change, grow more fur, grow less fur, grow longer legs, eat different types of food, whatever. They'll figure it out. And so the Great Dying was a 100,000 year long event. But what made it lethal and why we call it the Great Dying, and what has always been a mystery to me, not a mystery, it was 252 million years ago. I mean, it should be a mystery, right? But now they've got these models and these theories and think they know what happened. The changes came over 100,000 years, but they were unstable. Bang, 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 bang. Too hot, too cold, back to too hot again. And it was climactic change, but it was change. The change was changing. You see what I'm saying here? It didn't just say, oh, it got hot for 100,000 years and everything went extinct. That actually wouldn't happen. It got hot for 100,000 years and everything went extinct. Things would just evolve. They would change. It's possible that nothing would go extinct if all it did was get hot. But if it's switching back and forth, now it's hot. Oh, well, now let's do some cold. You got that figured out? Let's go back to being too hot. And if you do that, if you bang, 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 then it's really a lot of recurring events. It's not one long 100,000 long year event. It's the switch. And things couldn't cope. They just couldn't cope. If the first crisis made them evolve more fur than the second crisis, they had to de-evolve fur and evolve something else, involve longer legs and longer necks. Well, now that's not going to work. Now you have to go back to having more fur and being smaller. And the evolutionary process just can't respond like that. A little bit, and organisms can change and can move on. But if it's too many simultaneous threats or they happen too fast, then they can't evolve, because that's all they've got is evolution. They're not like us. We have technology, right? We can dig holes in the ground. We can fly from one continent to the other on an airplane. We can build walls to keep the sea out. We can do all kinds of things because we have all this technology and we got this 3.5 pounds of brain and the whole thing. But even for us, if the changes came too quickly, then we would be facing an extinction event, and there could be another Great Dying. And the reason I bring this up is I was reading this. It reminded me of our current situation. And what you need to know about our current situation with regards to global heating is that we have multiple threats looming at the same time, not just for humans, but for all life. Now, with regards to humans, the multiple threats can even become more abstract, like collapse of monetary systems. What's money? Whose money? The Russian ruble or the Chinese yuan or the US dollar or the UK pound or the French. What do they have? What do the French have? Why don't I know that? Whose economy would be the one collapsing? And would it even be a huge deal if everyone's economy collapses at the same time? Couldn't we adopt other ways of living? Yeah, maybe. But what if, what if at the same time that your economy collapsed, there was a global conflict? And what if, as well as a global conflict and an economic collapse, What if you had food insecurity? And then, haha, you think you've got that figured out. Now you have those three things, plus there's a pandemic. It doesn't even have to be particularly dangerous. It doesn't even have to be particularly widespread. But now you've got four things to cope with. Can you? Huh? You got that figured out? How about five? I could come up with five if I wanted to. And some of these things, as far as humans would be concerned, would be geared together because of our complex societies and governance and countries and borders and legal, you know, limitations on what people think they can do, like crossing borders and all that kind of stuff. That's all geared together. So you could have an economic crisis that then leads to wide scale regional conflicts that then leads to collapse of agricultural systems, and that then leads to food crises, which then leads to refugee crises, which then leads to more war, which then leads to more economic collapse, which then leads to more refugee crises. And all of this stuff is geared. It's all geared together. Okay, it's all geared together. Our situation, our global industrialized civilization, is so geared, not only nation to nation and region to region, but also just all the things I just mentioned, right? People's livelihoods, ability to eat food, find food. Can food be delivered? Because most of your food doesn't come from your backyard anymore. It comes from thousands, hundreds of miles away. Mechanized warfare, so on and so forth. But there are just so many things that are all geared together in our complex society that we would have a hard time. And global heating is going to bring all of that stuff. This is not me being an apocalyptic preacher. This is me being a scientist and an engineer and a student of history. It's all going to come at once. It's just all going to come at once because it's all geared together. We didn't used to have a global civilization. This is really a first. Did you know that? Did you know that? I bet you never think about that. You're living in the first global civilization that the planet has ever known. There was the Romans and there was the Chinese, and they barely even knew each other existed. The Roman Empire, which you can call Europe now, barely knew that the Chinese Empire, which is basically East Asia, even existed. They barely traded with each other. And whenever a group of people would come to Europe, it was a big deal. And we still read about it in the history books. As soon as the Europeans sent some guy over to Asia, it was a big deal. We still read about it in the history books. Well, now, every single day, 50 times a day, 50,000 times a day, people from East Asia fly to Europe. People from Europe fly to East Asia, and they bring all the usual stuff, gifts and silks and foods and parasites and diseases and all the other stuff. Okay? It happens every day now. Representatives from the West go to the East, and representatives from the East go to the West. It's just like this common thing because you live in a global civilization. First time ever. Oh, and simultaneous with that, and by the way, no coincidence that simultaneous with that, no coincidence at all, we're burning fossil fuels. What's the number again for crude oil? You remember from the last video? How many hours have I spent talking about this? 100 million barrels of oil a day is why we have a global civilization. And those 100 million barrels of oil a day, he says with a smirk, is destroying your planet. It's called global heating. So really, you can't have 100 million barrels of oil a day. Sorry, you can't. And when the time comes for us to not have that anymore, and there's lots of ways that could happen, it doesn't have to be deliberate. It could be on accident. There's lots of ways that could happen. Nature could just take it away from us. It just gets too hot. When that happens, you can't have your global civilization anymore. But in the time that we've had it, in the 80 years that we've had a global industrialized civilization, we've gone from 1 billion humans to 8 billion humans. And even when we were 1 billion, we were really fucking up the planet. We were. 100 years ago. So that would make it like 1924, right? Oh, yeah, we were really fucking up. 1924, things were really bad. And we were thick in it. And we've had nothing but global civilization ever since. Well, that can't last because of global heating and all the resultant problems that are going to come from that. And if this could be a 100,000 year catastrophe, we could evolve. We could adapt. We really could. We could actually, if we could somehow string this out for 100,000 years, and I'll even grant that we've done 100 years of stringing it out since 1924. So let's assume that we've actually done not too bad, right? We've been burning fossil fuels like gangbusters, not to the tune we are now, by the way, not even a fraction of this, but we were doing it and we were changing the planet at the time. And, so we've already been doing this for 100 years. It's like, so far, so good, or at least okay-ish, right? But if we could, do you think that we could string this out like we're doing now for 100,000 years? Not 100 years, but 100,000. So do this same trick, stringing it out for 100 years, okay-ish, 1,000 times. Do you really think that we could do that last 100 years of fakery and kind of ignoring the problems and, treating people's pollution-induced illnesses and, dealing with the starvation and dealing with the food crises? Do you think that we can do that 1,000 more times? I don't think so. I don't think we can keep this together. I don't think we have time. The climate crisis, if you want to call it that, is going to fall on us like a ton of bricks, and it's going to do that in probably. I mean, it already is. So we are now in the kill zone. Okay, we are now in the kill zone, and we are going to stay in the kill zone for probably, even if we took heroic efforts today, like this afternoon, UN passes a unanimous decision to end the use of fossil fuels tomorrow. Okay, even if we did this today, we would be in the kill zone for another 100 years. So we had 100 years of a big party. We tack on into that 100 years of absolute catastrophe. All the things I just described 5 minutes ago. Because the global climate system, the earth dynamic system, is going to fall down on us like a piano out of a window. Okay? We're walking along, we think we're doing pretty fine, and all of a sudden a 800-pound piano lands on us. That's how this is going to be. And it's not 100,000 years. You don't get a chance to evolve, and cope, and migrate, and grow your fur, or lose your fur, or change the way you do things, or change your dependency on fossil fuels, or rejigger your economy, or go electric, or go green, or go whatever. You're not going to be able to do any of that. That's just not going to happen. It's going to hit you like a piano falling out of a third-story window. It's going to be like that Bugs Bunny moment, right? You see the shadow of the piano around you on the sidewalk, and you don't even have time to look up. It's like, why is there the shadow of a piano right where I'm standing? Right? It's like one of those Bugs Bunny cartoons. And you're gonna look up and just in time for it to land on you. That's how this is going to be. It's already started. We are in the kill zone, as they like to call it in the military. Yeah, we're in the kill zone. And we got maybe 30 years, possibly 50. Even if the UN passed a unanimous, binding, legal treaty, all 192 nations signed it, including the Chinese and the Russians, and they all signed it, and we're going to end our fossil fuel dependency over the next 12 months, starting tomorrow, okay? And we did it on those. We would still be in the kill zone. We would stay in the kill zone for 50 years. And if we don't have that agreement, then that just makes the kill zone longer. We're already in it. It goes not for 50 more years. It goes for 100 or 150 or 1,000. Just every year we don't try and get out of this bind, it just tacks on another 10 years. Every year we don't do something, tacks on 10 years, during which we are officially in the kill zone. And what's that going to look like? You spend 50 years in a kill zone, you die. And if not you personally, someone else, they die. And when there's enough people that's dead, then we're not in a kill zone anymore. And the number of people left might be 0. I don't believe that myself. I don't subscribe to what do they call it? Near-term human extinction. I don't subscribe to that at all. That's laughable. There's not going to be any near-term human extinction. Are you kidding me? No, 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 no. We're like the birds. We're going to run away. We're going to fly away. We're going to go to fucking Mars. Come on. There's not going to be any near-term human extinction. What a joke. If you think that's what, if you think that that's what's going to absolve you of any responsibility, say, well, I don't have to do anything because we're all going extinct anyway. Yep. You just prepare for the probability that you'll be standing, in the rubble among the ashes with your Geiger counter measuring the radioactivity. Okay. Yeah, you're going to be that guy. You're going to be that family. You're going to be that group of people. And you're going to be dealing with the aftermath. And you were thinking, well, we're all going to die anyway. So what's the point? And there you are staying there with a Geiger counter trying to find a safe place to have lunch. Well, la dee da. Yeah, we're in the kill zone. Doesn't mean you're going to die. You could be, you might be a survivor. Sucks to be you. And the key to this article was, it wasn't the 100,000 years of harm. That actually might have even been a non-event. We might not even be talking about the Great Dying. It was the switching back and forth and all the things that happened one after the other or simultaneously, and all the gearing, and there was nowhere to go, nowhere to escape. And you ran from the heat and you hit the cold. You ran from the cold, you hit the heat. And then it was all these other things falling apart. And the thing you used to eat was gone. And now the thing that eats you has nothing to eat. They're eating more of you. And now you're gone. And now they have no food and they're gone. It's just like all these cascading things that are happening daily on a daily basis, just one thing after another. And we are in the kill zone. That's why it is a kill zone. That's where we are. We are going to have one thing after another. It's going to be completely unhinged. Just what this, and then when you dealt with that, then this comes along, and then you think you got that figured out. And what just hit me in the back of the head? What's going on back here? And you fix that, and you come out, and then this something come at you from the front, and it's this side and that side, and it's up above and it's down below. And what's this shadow of a piano around me? Yeah, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be like that. It's not going to be climate change. My God, you'd be lucky if you had some fucking climate change. You'd have won the lottery if all you got was climate change. You're standing on the sidewalk and there's a shadow of a piano around you. Why is there a shadow of a piano around me? Yeah, you thought you had some climate change problems? You got existential risk problems. X risk. No, you probably won't go extinct. We're not going extinct. We're going to have to face it. When this is done, we're going to be left over. There's going to be people standing around saying, well, we fucked that up. Yep. By golly. We done screwed the pooch. Looks to me like this city used to be a nice place. Look at it now. This country used to be a prosperous country. Can't even find it on the map. All these borders don't even matter anymore. It's white people and brown people and red people and green people and blue people, and we're all having to live together, because if we don't figure out how to live together, we're all going to go die together. And so all those problems we thought we had with the Haitians eating our dogs and cats wasn't even real, but we thought that was a problem. We just made up shit. We're just making up problems. Hey, whoa, you don't have to make up problems, Sparky. You don't have to invent crazy ass shit. You're surrounded by crazy ass shit. And you think it's crazy now, it's going to get absolutely insane. And it's not going to stop. And you're going to be running from one disaster to the other. And you're going to run into people and they're running from a disaster. And you think now that person's your problem. And you were headed west thinking you would be safe. And you run into people head on heading east, your direction, and they're looking for safety. And you're saying, well, if you're running from something over there and I'm running from something behind me, I can tell you right now, you don't want to go where I just came from. And I'm wondering, why am I going where you just came from? And the two groups of people are standing in the middle of the freeway and they're looking at each other and say, well, where do we go from here then? That kind of crazy. Everything in the world is going to come unglued because we are so geared together like this. And there are hundreds, thousands of gears that all gear together like this, and they all have to turn. And that's where your food comes from, and your water comes from, and that's where your electricity comes from, and that's where everything you know comes from. And you didn't know that until I told you. And your problem is not refugees, and your problem is not your border. That's one of a dozen problems you now have to face because of global heating. Global heating is going to light all the fuses. It's going to light all the fuses. Global heating is going to light all the fuses. All the bombs are going to go off at once. And that's why that's why Elon Musk, right? No dummy. He's got personality flaws, but he's no dummy. That's why he wants to be on fucking Mars. He wants to be on Mars where there's not even an atmosphere. Because he can build a dome and he can use the soil to make oxygen and he can find the water deep in the ground and he can turn the soil into something that can grow food and he can build domes and he has his own set of rockets and he has his own set of fuel and he has his own aerospace stations and he can build temporary accommodations in moon orbit and launch all his buddies into moon orbit, put them on big rockets, send them to Mars. There's already a colony there. Everybody lands and everybody picks up a shovel and they get to work. And when the time comes, he just puts himself on one of his own rockets, sends his butt to Mars, and he lands and they all think he's Generalissimo Musk and you're welcome, sir. And how many wives do you want? He's getting out. Elon Musk is getting the fuck out. You think he's not? You think Jeff Bezos isn't getting the fuck out? You think not? You think not? He's going to have robots running his stupid factories and robotic cars delivering his Amazon Prime to your front door. And so there's no humans running Amazon. Why does Jeff Bezos need to be on Earth running Amazon? He can run Amazon from near Earth orbit. And if him and his buddy, Elon, sync up, well, what the hell? Elon can have half of Mars and Jeff Bezos can have the other half. Why not? Share a planet. You think these guys are going to be on this planet while global heating is lighting all the fuses on all the bombs? Do you really think so? Because I don't think so. And if I was Elon Musk and I was watching these, 550-ton vehicles going into orbit, I'd be thinking, yep, I could put a lot of my friends on that thing, and we could put a lot of cargo on a bunch of those things and build a bunch of robots, which he's building. And we send the robots and the cargo to Mars ahead of us, right? And what are the robots going to be doing? They're going to be out there with their hammers and nails, and they're going to be building the domes or constructing them or welding them, or whatever they're going to do, right? And they're going to be setting everything up for us. And all these robots, Tesla has robots now. Elon Musk is making fucking robots. Why do you think he's making fucking robots? Why is he making rockets and robots? Why does he have an AI company? What do you think he's doing? He's getting off of this rock. And he's going to send his robots and his rockets and his automation, his AI all to Mars and tell, okay, see what you can do. If you need more stuff, we'll send you more stuff. And they're not human. They're not breathing the air. They're not doing anything. They're just on Mars making a palace for Elon Musk. You think he's not going to do that? You fucking moron. He's out of here. Jeff Bezos is building his own rockets. Where do you think Jeff Bezos is going with his rocket? Where do you think he's going with his rocket? As far away from here as he can fucking get. That's where he's going with his rocket. They're leaving. They're leaving. They're leaving. You're not going to have 100,000 years to adapt to this. You're not going to have 100. You're not going to have 50. And Elon Musk is going to be on Mars 5 years from now. That's probably how much time we have before the wheels come off of this shit show. About 5 years, maybe 10, probably 5. I just feel like it's just, oh God, I can smell the fuses burning on all these bombs that are just about to go off. I can smell the fuses burning. I can hear them. Yes. It's not the heat that gets you, strictly speaking. It's all the other things that are coming at the same time until finally you're standing on the sidewalk wondering what else could possibly go wrong. And you're looking down at the sidewalk and you see the shadow of a piano around you right where you're standing. And that's your Bugs Bunny moment. You ran out of time. Too many things happened all at once. All the bombs went off at once. And And 90 days before that, Elon Musk was holding a press conference on Mars in his new colony made by his robots and his AI. Yep, that's how we're doing this. That's how we're doing this. And you and I, or whoever it is that you and I are, maybe not you, maybe not me, but somebody in this position, somebody is going to walk up to you and they're going to say, well, I think we have to figure this out together. And you're going to say, well, you got that right. And then there'll be a third person that walks up and say, are you two talking about survival? Oh, yeah, we're totally talking about that. You got anything you want to talk about? Oh, yeah, I totally am into survival. What are we going to do? Well, we don't really know. We don't quite have enough people. Well, let's get some more people. I've got my family. You've got your family. And, I've got some coworkers here, and we've been talking about how to survive this shit show. And, all the bombs are going off at once. And it's been like 90 days of nothing but bad news. And now the food is running out at the stores because no one's transporting food anymore. And so what should we do? And I'm going to tell you right now what you're going to do. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to give you the word, 2 words. I'm going to give you 2 words that'll inform that conversation when you're standing with your friends, your family, your coworkers, your neighbors, and you're all wringing your hands and you don't know what to do, okay? And you're trying to come up with a plan, and there's a place you got to go, and there's a thing you got to do, and it's called village life. It's your only hope. The only hope you've got. Now, Elon Musk is going to do his village life in an aluminum dome on Mars with Jeff Bezos and all their robots, and surrounded by their immediate extended family. There'll be 2,000-3,000 people in the Musk Citadel on Mars. 2,000-3,000 people. And there'll be Black people and Asian people, and they'll have a nice genetic diversity, and there'll be thousands of people. And they'll have like a little picture of Earth up there on Mars because, that may be all that's left. And why not have one of everything? Just like Noah's Ark, right? 2 by 2. Have 2 of everything. Have 2 breeding pairs of everybody. Have every language, represented. Have every cultural identity represented on Mars, like in an ark. And then when the shit goes down on the surface of the Earth, then they can come back. What they're going to come back and find is villages. People who could get together and who could weather the storms. And some of the storms will be literal, torrential rains and floods and the whole thing. And some of the storms will be economic or food or political or warfare or all kinds of storms that you're going to have to weather. And there'll be lots of villages that don't, maybe even most of them. Most of the times when people get together, they just won't have the right stuff. They won't have the right location. They'll end up in between 2 warring states, and then they get blown up, or they'll end up in a place that floods too often, or they'll end up in a place that ends up getting too cold or too hot, or whatever happens. And it's all coming from all directions at once. And you settle where you think you're going to do the best, and you hope for the best, and you hope you get lucky. And some villages will. And when Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, or their heirs, could actually be the same gentleman, by the way, 100 years from now, don't kid yourself. When they decide to come back and recolonize the Earth, they may find it fairly well populated by people living in villages. And what are those people in the villages doing? They're taking water out of a well. They've got their fields. They've got their seeds that they plow and into the ground every year. And they've got their domesticated animals. So they've got, cattle to, cows to pull, cows for milk, and cattle, oxen for pulling the plow. They got horses. They got sheep, goats, chickens, pigs, right? They got all their domesticated animals. Can't survive without us anyway. They've got all their domesticated animals. They got their farmland. They got their village life. They've got all their rituals. They've got all their practices. Children are born, children are raised. It's all done collectively. And there's a certain base of knowledge that supports village life, but there's also a base of knowledge that they simply got from the textbooks, right? The fall of Rome, right? The rise of industrialization, the Cold War, the Second World War, the First World War. They'll have all this stuff. They'll be learning all their different languages. Every village will probably have 2 or 3 different language speakers just to keep the languages alive. And they'll have plays, and they'll tell stories, and the children will grow up, and the children will become adults, and they all adopt the same rituals and practices. And that's village life. And sometimes you go to another village, and sometimes you bring back a bride, right? You come back with a another person for your village. And sometimes people leave the villages and never return. Village life. And you build your walls and you keep the wolves out. And of course, you keep the raiders out too, the people you don't want in your village. And you learn how to defend yourself. Village life. And you raise your wheat and you harvest your wheat and you have a harvest festival, drink a lot of beer, a lot of wine, and then you store your wheat and you have a miller and the miller grinds the wheat into flour and you have a baker that bakes the flour into bread and you got natural yeast and you got natural herbs and you got natural medicines and village life. And when 5 years from now you're standing around with your neighbors and your extended family and you're wringing your hands and you're wondering what more could go wrong. What next thing could go wrong? And then you realize you're just going to have to figure it out together because whatever it is, it's completely random, completely unexpected. And there's so many harms and so many dangerous things and so much, deprivation that you just don't know where to turn. And you're just going to have to turn to each other. That's it. For a long time, you thought the government would save you. For a long time, you thought violence would save you. For a long time, you thought Twitter would save you. And now you just realize none of that worked. None of that's coming. None of that's going to help. All you have is each other. And the word you should be thinking and the word you should be talking about when you get together with the last humans in your neighborhood is village life. We need to recreate village life. We need to get walls. We need to have habitat. We need soil. We need seed. We need water. We need tools. We need to do this now, folks. I don't know what to tell you. I can't do it on my own anymore. I can't go to the market and get food. That's what I used to do. I can't drive 40 miles to try and find food because I can't even find gasoline. What am I supposed to do? I mean, if I drove 40 miles to some big box shop, it'd be empty, looted, burned down. I mean, just one thing after another. All of it caused by global heating. In fact, it's getting so hot, there are days when you can't go out at all. There's days when you can't even be on the surface of the earth. You have to be in a well-insulated home with the curtains closed and the air conditioner running full time, and thank God for the electricity. Or lacking electricity, you live underground. You dig a big hole and you build walls under the ground, and you have your door is in the roof, and you go down a ladder, and that's your habitat. And it's really comfortable down there. And the people who figured out how to do that are geniuses. Who would have thought you live below the surface of the earth? That's what you do. You just have to figure it all out. And maybe the villages of the future are mostly below ground. I've talked about that on this channel, but I could probably talk about that again. Maybe I should. So just to summarize, the Great Dying wiped out 90% of life on Earth, 90% of life on Earth. We are now in the 6th mass extinction. This will be probably about the same scale, maybe a little less, maybe 70%, but close to that. It's still going to be a shit show, okay? But what made the Great Dying a great dying, why everything died, wasn't just that there was a bad thing that happened, like what happened to the dinosaurs. What happened was that many things happened simultaneously and in sequence, and life couldn't adapt. And that's what caught my attention with this, and that's why I'm sitting here, making this video. It all happened at once. Every harmful thing that could happen did, and it just kept changing, ratcheting back and forth. You get knocked this way and knocked that way, and that's what's coming with global heating. All the fuses are going to be lit at once. All the bombs are going to go off at the same time. You're going to get hit from the left, hit from the right, hit from above, and eventually you're going to find that you can't make it on your own. And the people who learn that lesson first, and the people who learn that lesson together, then they're going to understand. And you need to understand right now. You need to have this in your head. You need to send this message out into the world. You need to talk to people about this. When all the bombs go off at once and the fuses are already lit, I can hear them, I can smell them burning. When all the bombs go off at once, then you can't do this alone. You will have to have a community. And that community may be just your neighborhood. It may be your extended family that comes to live with you because they can't live where they're living. And, whoever it is, whatever that group of people is, that you're standing in the middle of the intersection and there's no cars anywhere, and you're just standing in the middle of the intersection, wringing your hands and wondering, what are we going to do now? There's no food at that market. There's no food at this market. and it's 120 degrees during the day and it's 110 degrees at night. And what are we supposed to do? How are we going to save ourselves from this? And you'll have no time to argue about it. You'll have no time to think about it. And the people that argue about it never get it done. They die. You never hear from them. The people that never understand their plight, never understand how the way out, being, communal activity, banding together, they're going to die alone, and you'll never hear their story. And the story that will be told in the future will be told by the people who figured it out and who got lucky. And the story will be, yes, we banded together. Yes, we lived together and we shared our resources. And there were lean times. There were times when we were down to one can of beans and there were 20 people had to eat from that one can of bean. And every person got 4 beans. We counted them. We laid them all out and we counted them. We divided them up individually for 20 people. And we gave the children a few extra. And the rest of us got whatever we got. Some of us got 3 or 4 beans. And that was it. That was the last can of beans shared among 20 people. And that was the low point, kids. But we made it. We got past that. We got our first harvest in a week later. We got beans and we got squash and we got potatoes. And we had a nice community meal of stew. And we all sat around that table eating that stew and we cried. That's going to be the story they tell. The ones who survived, who remember dividing up a can of beans among 20 people. That'll be their story. Well, for some of us, for you, maybe me, that is our story now. That's in our future. When all these bombs go off at once. 20 people dividing up one can of beans. You can doubt me, but don't forget what I just told you. Don't forget it. Doubt it if you want. Say I'm crazy if you want, but don't forget. Because when it goes down the way I just described, what I want you to do is I want you to remember you can't do this alone. You're going to have to do this with other people in a village. And you're going to have to figure out how to do that. I'm not going to be there. I'm going to be somewhere else making my own village. You have to figure that out. And you need to think about that. Good luck. You don't have much time left to figure that out.